Take your plans out of the group chat and get long weekend ready in new Abercrombie. From day to night, pack new outfits for every part of your itinerary. Grabbing brunch? Throw on the A&F Mila dress. Then head to your dinner reservation in their new bubble hem mini dress. And yes, permission to overpack for pics with the girls. Abercrombie's best-selling Scarlet Squirt deserves a post in your feed. Your plans are worth it. Shop Abercrombie's new long weekend collection online or in store.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
For 11 years, Marvel was everything in the theaters. The MCU redefined the superhero movie and franchise. Often imitated, never duplicated, it was the juggernaut that could not be stopped. So what happened? Find out as we step into the quantum realm to see if Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in Marietta, Georgia and around the world. How you guys doing? Cue the geekery because we're talking about an MCU film, and this is where I'm super psyched and also super disappointed at the same time. This week, to further our discussion into Razzies Month, we're talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And here to join me, the Wasp to my Ant-Man, my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing?
Did you just call me a bug?
Well, I called you a much more effective lethal bug to
and
my...
There's clearly a sizing issue here. Like a wasp versus an ant is a lot bigger, and you're taller than I am.
Well, you always complain that you never get to feel big, so this is the one time that I'm giving you that chance to...
I'm the ant. You're the wasp.
No. We're just doing a cast swap here. So for one day and one day alone, you get to be big.
Ooh, okay. I get to, well, why can't I be like B-girl? Why do I got to be a wasp? At least bees are effective.
No one is going
helpful.
to line up to B-girl, the movie. No.
I would.
I know you would. I know you would.
Why the wasp, though?
A 2-hour version of a Blind Melon song is not going to draw anyone into the movie theaters. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but bees make honey. At least they're productive and effective.
Although that being said, people did go see the Bee movie when it came out.
Yes.
So my argument apparently is moot. So we are talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And let me explain the dynamic here. I am a card-carrying member of Geek Nation. I fly my geek flag high. My wife, I've broken her into it. I've dragged her kicking and screaming into Geek World. So when I told you that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania qualified for Razzies Month, what was your thought?
Okay. I like Ant-Man. I really do. I like Paul Rudd. Got no beef with him. But I have speaking points on this movie.
You sound like you're about to get ready for a throwdown.
I'm ready, but I can't go off right off the bat. So I'm whoosah.
All right. keep your Pym particles in your pocket for now. We'll let you rage out and grow big a little bit later. We are talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. For the record, this was the first ever MCU film to ever be nominated for a Razzie. So before we even get into this, though, we need to take Ant-Man 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and trailerize it.
When the lives of half the universe are saved from the Thanos snapdown, one superhero was the beacon of hope. Somehow it was Ant-Man. Now, as he basks in the limelight that can only be described as pleasantly delusional, Scott Lang is back to save the day again. For who, we're not quite sure. When Cassie Lang gets reskinned like a video game and accidentally opens a portal to CGI hell, the Ant family finds themselves in the quantum realm, with the biggest question being, why is everyone talking in pronouns like they're about to battle Voldemort? Kang has arrived to dramatically pause in each sentence, successfully extending the movie to a proper theater length. Can the first Avenger to successfully monetize their achievements find his way out of a green screen room, or will he spend the rest of his days talking to broccoli and drinking a holeless goo guy? Paul Rudd returns in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, rated PG-13 for pink goo.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this film. Goo Guy is one of those things. But let's get into who is in this movie. The movie stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Jonathan Majors, Michelle Pfeiffer, Michael Douglas, Bill Murray, William Jackson Harper, Katie O'Brien, Corey Stoll, and Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang, taking over the role that was played by Emma Furman in Avengers Endgame. There is an almost starring in this film. At one point in the movie, Hank Pym mentions that he dated someone while Janet was in the quantum realm because, yeah, he had needs too. That character, Linda, was originally going to be in the movie to be played by Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh.
Yeah.
Stifler's mom.
Stifler's mom. Hank Pym apparently was with Stifler's mom. Now, I need to point out, before we get into further deep diving into this movie, I recognize that Jonathan Majors didn't do himself any favors at all. When we talk about these films, we talk about the movies as they are. We do not talk about the actors' legal problems outside of the movie. We are only talking about the performances in the film. So we're not going to get into a deep discussion about Jonathan Majors and basically how he pooched himself and his future in the MCU. That being said, when it was discussed that Jonathan Majors would no longer play Kang, some of the actors mentioned as potential to take over included John Boyega, Denzel Washington, John David Washington, Lakeith Stanfield, Aldous Hodge, Coleman Domingo, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Now, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is getting his Marvel break this year because he's playing the role in Wonder Man. And of course, Denzel Washington has also announced, although he shouldn't have, that he's going to be in Black Panther 3. So little by little, some of these really good actors are coming into the MCU.
You know who would have been great as Kang?
Who?
Ncuti Gatwa.
Ncuti Gatwa would be very, very interesting.
I would love to see that.
But see, now that we know that Marvel is moving away from the Kang the Conqueror storyline, because now we know that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be coming back as Dr. Doom in the Fantastic Four movie. So
don't get me started on that.
Well, not confirmed that he's going to appear in Fantastic Four, but we know Avengers Doomsday is happening. So we're moving away from the Kang angle and going on to Dr. Doom. The movie was directed by Peyton Reed and written by Jeff Loveness. Now, this is the only film Jeff Loveness has ever written. That's it. This movie. Now, prior to this, he had also written for Jimmy Kimmel Live and Rick and Morty. So yeah, we're getting our stories from Rick and Morty. The movie.
I knew I saw the pink goo guy somewhere before. And Broccoli Head Man, those are straight out of Rick and Morty.
The film had a budget of $200 million. Domestically, made $214 million, worldwide $476 million. When it debuted on the February 17th President's Day long weekend, it debuted at number one, because it's a Marvel movie, at $120 million. The next closest film was the 10th week of Avatar: The Way of Water, $8 million only. So that is an roughly $112 million difference between number one and number two. The only other wide release debut that week was Marlowe, which debuted at number 8 with $2 million. But even with a $120 million take, it only spent 1 week at number one. There are some accolades for this film, both good and bad. Let's start with the good. At the 2024 Saturn Awards, it was nominated for Best Superhero Film, lost to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. At the 2023 MTV Movie and TV Awards, Paul Rudd was nominated for Best Hero, but lost to Pedro Pascal in The Last of Us. And the cast was nominated as Best Kick-Ass Cast, but lost to Stranger Things. At the 2024 People's Choice Awards, it was nominated for the Action Movie of the Year, lost to The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And at the 2024 Australian Academy of Cinema and TV Arts Awards, was nominated for Best Visual Effects or Animation, but lost to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And here's where it takes a turn for the worst. At the 2024 Golden Schmoes Awards, it was nominated for Biggest Disappointment of the Year, lost to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and nominated for Worst Movie of the Year, lost to Carrie's favorite movie, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. At the 2024 Hawaii Film Critics Society Awards, was nominated for Worst Film of the Year, lost to 80 for Brady. At the 2024 Rusty Bagel Awards, which apparently is a thing that I discovered today, Peyton Reed was nominated for Worst Foreign Director, lost to Nia DaCosta for The Marvels. It was nominated for Worst Screenplay, lost to The Marvels. Jonathan Majors was nominated for Worst Foreign Actor, lost to Ezra Miller for The Flash. MODOK was nominated for Worst Animated Character, lost to the CGI babies in The Flash. The movie was nominated for Worst Remake, Sequel, or Prequel, lost to The Marvels, and lost to Worst Special Effects or 3D, lost to The Flash. I'm going to push back here. The Marvels is not that bad. I enjoyed The Marvels. I think The Marvels got a little bit of hate that it didn't need there.
I was just going to say, with all the hate that was thrown at Madame Web, Madam... Oh my
Madame. God. You make it sound so classy.
I know.
Madame
Let me
Web.
try again. With all of the hate and the shade that was thrown at Madame Web, how is it that this movie escaped the radar of the Razzies?
But it didn't, though, because at the 2024 Razzies, it was nominated for Worst Prequel, Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel, lost to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Peyton Reed was nominated for Worst Director, lost to Reese Frake Waterfield for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And both Bill Murray and Michael Douglas were nominated for Worst Supporting Actor. They both lost to Sylvester Stallone for Expendables.
Oh, come on. Bill Murray was the best part of the movie.
Was he, though?
No.
Was he, though?
I can't say that just off the bat.
No, you can't.
No, I can't.
Because you're wrong. But anyways, regardless of, wouldn't be a Razzie movie that we're talking about if it wasn't nominated for Razzies. So that's why we're here. Also, the critics. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a tomatometer of 46% and a popcorn meter of 81%. Now, let me put this into perspective here. Of every single MCU film, not counting the series, just movies, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania has the lowest tomatometer of all of them. Since Iron Man first hit our screens in 2008, this movie has the lowest tomatometer of every single MCU film. The only other two movies that qualify for it's not that bad. The Eternals, which sits at 47%, and Captain America Brave New World at 49%.
Does that include the Thor movie?
Every Thor movie does not qualify. The only 3 movies that we can talk about on the show, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Eternals, and the brand new Captain America Brave New World. But let's get a bigger picture of the numbers here. Over at Metacritic, the film has a Metascore of 48. At IMDb, it sits at 6 stars out of 10 for a 60% score. At Letterboxd, it sits at 2.2 stars out of 5 for a 44% score. And at the movie database, sits at 63%, giving this movie an aggravated aggregate of 57%. So I ask you, Carrie, 57%, is that accurate?
Is high.
Really?
Oh.
Oh, it's time to get into this one here.
Oh, it's high.
It's high, or are you high?
Oh, no.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 45% site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
It's always a good time to celebrate your team. With designs for every occasion, Starbucks cards are the perfect thank you for employees and clients alike. Did you know that you can easily order gift cards in bulk directly from Starbucks at StarbucksCardB2B.com? Give your team the recognition they deserve with a gift they're sure to use. They're thoughtful gifts for special occasions, events, or just because. With digital, physical, and customizable card options, gifting is made easy through StarbucksCardB2B.com.
All right, well, let's get into the breakdown. We start, of course, with Paul Rudd, who plays Scott Lang / Ant-Man. Your thoughts?
Okay, I like Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I think he's funny. I think I love that it's written that the character doesn't take himself too seriously because, hell, he can turn into an ant or like a giant. Like, how can you possibly take yourself too seriously? And I so loved when he was like mistaken for Spider-Man. Like, I thought that was hilarious. That one little line when, everyone's giving him free complimentary coffees and donuts and stuff. And
as well you should for someone who saved half the entire universe.
Thanks,
yes.
Spider-Man.
You're the other bug. I mean, I'm glad you pointed that out. When Ant-Man was first pitched as a movie, people were like, Ant-Man, you're going to do an Ant-Man movie. And it worked.
But think about how useful his size change is.
Oh, absolutely. But think about those first 2 Ant-Man films, okay? They worked because, in essence, they were simple heist films. And this is when the MCU knew exactly what it was doing, right? Captain America films were more like politically edged thrillers, right? Yes, the first one was more like a period piece, but Winter Soldier and Civil War really played into like that whole political dynamics of the story. Iron Man, of course, is big, things go boom, right? Hulk, smashy smash, all good. Thor started very Shakespearean, but ended up being a little bit on the crazy side once Taika Waititi took over. Black Panther, excellent film. Absolutely excellent film. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's out there, but it works. James Gunn handled that trilogy perfectly. The first 2 Ant-Man films were charming. They were. But because the majority of this film spends its time in the quantum realm, it takes Ant-Man out of what made Ant-Man good. Ant-Man is great because you can take a little piss out of the character, right? He's walking around. He gets mistaken for Spider-Man. He in the real world, Ant-Man is a good character. Ant-Man felt out of place in this film.
It really wasn't his film, though. It was
No.
Michelle Pfeiffer's film.
Yes and no.
It was Janet. It was all about Janet.
Yes and no. I'm going to do that a little bit, but I agree. This isn't necessarily an Ant-Man film, nor is it really a Wasp film, as played by Evangeline Lilly. I don't know what it is.
I don't think it knew what it wanted to be. That's
No.
the problem with this. The thing that I love, that I find endearing about all of those properties, the Marvel universe,
Mm-hmm.
is their use of humor. And even though they tried, there were a few jokes in this one,
Mm-hmm.
it fell flat. It just felt like, and again, when you said they were stuck in the quantum realm for the entire freaking movie, that it felt like we were stuck. It was almost like there's nothing new going on. I mean, sure, you had like the two sides of things. You've got like Kang the Conqueror. You've got like MODOK, which was just, I mean, I think
we'll get to
that was
MODOK
the
in a bit.
best worst part of the movie, but I digress. But really, it was like, well, this is it. Like there was no like outside. Like I wanted more Avengers when they were talking about assembling the Avengers. I wanted to frickin' see like, I don't know, like the Hulk smash and Thor come in, and it wasn't enough to hold its own, to make an Ant-Man movie that really wasn't about Ant-Man.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You take a look at the Infinity Saga, which for 11 years, that was the pinnacle of storytelling and movie making. Like they pumped out movie after movie after movie, and they moved closer to the goalposts with each one, and really, once Thanos was defeated at the end of Endgame, it became the question of, well, what's next? Right? Where are they going to go? Are they going to end at Endgame, or are they going to keep going? Well, they kept going, right? Enter the multiverse saga, and you have to create a big Thanos-level villain. Enter Kang the Conqueror. Now, if you read comics, or even if you just surface level watch the animated series, whether it be Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Avengers Assemble, both of which are available on Disney+, Kang the Conqueror is literally, he is very much a Thanos-level threat. When they introduced Thanos, ever so briefly, it was at the end of an Avengers film. And then when we touched base again with Thanos, it was at the end of an Avengers film. And then, of course, the next Avengers films focused pretty much on the Thanos storyline. Thanos is and was the coolest badass. And we had a little taste here, a little taste there, but it was always at a tentpole film. So far, post Endgame, we have not had a tentpole film. And yes, we had a version of Kang introduced at the, in Loki season 1. And then we had Kang the Conqueror, and they made him look very comic book accurate with his costume and the helmet and the whole works. I'm like, this is good. This is good when you saw the trailer. Is Ant-Man really the property to introduce that next Thanos level, existential, Avengers level threat? And I don't think it is. I think it's one of those things where you need some kind of team up film to signal that this is happening. Loki really played into it because it introduced us to the concept of the multiverse, right? And Loki, as a character, we were already familiar with. People were psyched. The first season was fantastic. And having Kang at the end, even though it was very art school hippy dippy kind of Kang, and that kind of soured it a little bit. And when the trailer came out for this, and Kang's badass Kang, I'm like, oh, now they're going to get a real Kang. This is going to be good. But I don't know if this is the property to do it in. Because Ant-Man lives and breathes with the humor. If you're going to introduce that kind of existential, Phase important threat. Ant-Man? But I don't know where else you put it. The other problem too is that Phase 4/5, whatever you want to call it, has felt a little rudderless. At first, Phase 1 rolls around. Iron Man shows up, and at the end you get, Nick Fury. I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. They're doing a thing. He said the thing. End of the Incredible Hulk. Tony Stark shows up. What? End of Iron Man 2. Post-credit scene. There's a hammer in the middle of the desert. We know what that hammer is. You get Thor. Then you get Captain America. And at the end of Captain America, we get a little tease for the first Avengers film. And at the end, post-credit scene for Avengers, get Thanos. And it's like, people lost it. Post-credit scenes, Phase 4, have felt weak. Like the Eternals, who knows where Star Fox is going to go? If we're ever going to see that again, right? But here was going to be, this is the launch point. This is introducing the big bad. And we're going to do it in the franchise, or at least the properties that leans into humor. It seems like a mismatch. Your thoughts on Evangeline Lilly, though, as Wasp?
I'm not familiar enough with this character. I mean, I'm assuming that she was introduced in the second movie.
No, she was in the first two.
In the first?
Yeah. Now, she didn't get her Wasp suit until the post-credit scene of the first Ant-Man film, and then it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? So, but the whole thing in the first film was that she was so mad at her father, Hank, for not making her a suit or giving her the suit or giving her the ability to be Ant-Man, because he didn't want her to follow into Janet's footsteps and get lost into the quantum realm. Then in the second one, they find their way into the quantum realm to rescue Janet. But now you've got Evangeline Lilly still kind of feeling a little perturbed that Janet hasn't told them everything about what happened in the quantum realm. So clearly there's tension between Hope and Janet.
I definitely got that part. I don't know. I mean, again, Ant-Man is not necessarily my Avenger.
No.
And you know who my Avengers are, but
Howard the Duck.
You know what? I liked her, and I like the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I like almost like she's more serious and Ant-Man is more fun.
I mean, here's the thing. Evangeline Lilly has come out now and said that she's retired from acting. So I don't even know we're going to get Wasp in a future film. I don't know if she's coming back. Ant-Man, you have to think will. But I mean, this was also the possibility of they had an opportunity here. They did. Because Scott and Hope are out in San Francisco, there was the possibility of teasing the concept of a West Coast Avengers, which was a successful comic book line, which included a different group of Avengers. And you think about all the characters that are out in California. You've got Ant-Man and the Wasp. You have Shang-Chi, who's out on the West Coast. We have She-Hulk, who's out on the West Coast. You could have formed a decent Avengers team with these characters. And Wonder Man, that series is coming out. He's on the West Coast. So you have very much almost the Avengers United We Stand animated series lineup. All you need is a Hawkeye and a Tigra, but I don't think we're ever going to get a Tigra. And of course we need a Vision, but where is White Vision from WandaVision? They could have gone the West Coast Avengers route. And if you used Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 to set up a West Coast Avengers because of discovering Kang, then it becomes okay, now this feels like almost a tentpole film. It could have been, but it wasn't. What it was, though, was an introduction to Cassie Lang as a superhero, this time played by Catherine Newton. So this, of course, is the third actor to play Cassie Lang. Of course, you had the little girl from the first two films. And then, of course, you had Catherine Newton coming in and replacing Emma Fuhrman from Avengers Endgame. Clearly, the idea to establish Cassie Lang in her superhero persona as Stature is a step towards a Young Avengers film. Your thoughts, though, on Catherine Newton as Cassie?
I thought she was fantastic. I really liked how incredibly smart she was and, and knowing, right? Like, she obviously had guidance from
Scott and Hope and Hank.
Exactly. And, even though she was getting herself in trouble, I really, really loved the love and the support of this family unit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Much like her dad, who spent time in prison, albeit for, being a thief, Cassie's getting in prison because of getting into good trouble. She's defending people. She's the heroic optimist.
Well, she did steal a police car.
Okay, well, he had it coming. But when it comes to MCU films, you have to always look at some of these things and say, how is this going to play in future films? If the idea of a Young Avengers property, as teased at the end of the Marvels, with Iman Vellani showing up at Kate Bishop's residence, saying, I'd like to talk to you about an Avengers initiative. Picture it. If you have a Young Avengers property, you're going to have Haley Steinfeld and Iman Vellani and Catherine Newton all teamed up together. I like that pairing.
I'm waiting for Squirrel Girl.
One day.
Make it happen.
One day you have to think it's going to happen.
Well, she's in the comics for the Young Avengers or the Young...
Yeah.
Young Avengers or Young Marvels?
No, it's either way. Whatever name you want to put it, yes, Squirrel Girl is very much part of that. The thing is, then you have to cast Squirrel Girl to fit within the age ranges around Catherine Newton and Iman Vellani and Haley Steinfeld. So
I'm free. I'm available.
You couldn't put Anna Kendrick into that group because even though Anna Kendrick is still very young looking, she's older than the others. I have to think that someone like either a Madeline Pesh or a Sadie Sink might get that role if they ever decide to go down Squirrel Girl Road.
Or make way for new talent. Like, Hollywood is so recycled and you see the same faces in different roles. I want to see a new up-and-comer.
Well, I mean, they struck gold with Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan.
Oh, she's fantastic.
Well, she's basically Kamala Khan as it is, right? Like, we're talking about someone who grew up loving Marvel and Marvel comics and whatnot, exactly like Kamala Khan is in the comics. And now Iman Vellani is writing the comic books. Like, you could not have cast that role more accurately.
Well, the casting for Shang-Chi, like Simu Liu is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Marvel does a decent job of casting their characters, except for when they get into trouble off screen, but we're not going to get into that. But I think Catherine Newton is fantastic because she fits not just in an action role, because she proves she can do that, but she brings the humor level as well. So fits well into an Ant-Man proper, a normal Ant-Man property, not this one. I think as much as you say is it's a Janet film, it's also a Cassie Lang film because you're establishing her as a superhero moving forward. Hank Pym, as played once again by Michael Douglas, your thoughts?
Oh, thank God for him. He was so funny and his lines were perfectly written. His delivery was on point. He was the most enjoyable. And really, he was just, for the most part, just flying through like with the little hand fisticuffs to
Were we watching the same movie?
You didn't like him?
No.
Oh.
And I say that knowing that I like Michael Douglas as Hank Pym in the first two films.
So what was it about this one?
Bear with me here. So in the first two films, Hank is a little ornery, still funny, very sarcastic, right? He was Ant-Man until things turned against him and all that, and he lost Janet, and he didn't want anyone to ever be the Ant-Man again. And it's a respect / annoyed kind of relationship between him and Scott Lang. There was more depth, I think, to Hank Pym. And I felt in this one, he was literally there to make ant jokes. And that takes away from what made Michael Douglas so good in the first two films. Ant-Man himself is still Ant-Man. Even though the movie itself and the script doesn't allow him to really lean into what makes him good in this franchise. Wasp really doesn't get much to play with. Cassie Lang is well served by the script. Hank Pym is not. And I recognize that you can't give everyone the 5-course meal of a script. Some characters have to sit back while others are pushed forward. I think for all that Michael Douglas has done for these three films, this film doesn't do his character any justice. It's like the first Guardians of the Galaxy film. Drax was not just a joke, right? He didn't understand nuance. He didn't understand sarcasm. You had people relating because they couldn't get sarcasm and jokes with Drax. And then volumes 2 and 3, he's like a horn dog and just making all these bad jokes. And I was like, oh, you ruined Drax. I don't think they ruined Hank Pym here, but I don't think they remembered who Hank Pym was and what made him so good. And remember, too, that this is the first Ant-Man film not partially written by Paul Rudd. So you can feel the difference in the writing from the first two. Michelle Pfeiffer returning as Janet Van Dyne. And I feel bad because this is now the second week in a row that we have talked about a movie that has Michelle Pfeiffer in it that was nominated for a Razzie. Your thoughts on Michelle Pfeiffer in this film?
You know what? I liked her, but I didn't like her as much as I liked Michael Douglas. I found her character very hard to read for the uninitiated. Because again, I didn't know what was going on to begin with. This whole quantum realm was new to me. And I think I dislike how big it was and that there was so much to her character and so many related storylines. Like all of the characters that she was meeting in the quantum realm, she knew and had a history with. But it was almost kind of like you had to know. Like,
I'm going to argue that one, though. I see where you're coming from, and allow me to explain my viewpoint on this, and it might actually help explain why it was written that way. So Janet spent 30 years or something like that in the quantum realm, stuck there, couldn't get out, right? Until Hank came in and rescued her and pulled her out. The thing is, though, and it's alluded to earlier on in the film before they get sucked into the quantum realm, is that she's not telling anyone what happened to her in there. She's afraid of the quantum realm and she's not explaining herself. There's a trauma there. There's a fear of what could come out from there. If she came out, imagine who else could come out. And she knows who Kang is. She knows exactly what Kang is capable of and his intentions with the multiverse. She is so afraid of Kang making it out of the quantum realm that she doesn't want to talk about it for fear that someone gets the bright idea of like, well, maybe we should go in and take care of him. No, you don't. If he's stuck in there, you leave him stuck in there. You don't let him come out. And then once you're there, obviously, yes, Hank and Scott and Hope and Cassie are all fish out of waters in the quantum realm. Janet's been there. She knows everybody. It's been 30 years there fighting for your life, and you're going to know people. So it's one of those things where Janet becomes the guide, but she's still not telling everybody everything because for reasons, right? Clearly she had needs for 30 years. So, she had hookups and whatnot, but she also probably did things that she wasn't very proud of in the quantum realm, including fighting for, alongside the freedom fighters and whatnot, and doing her best to stop Kang from making his way out of the quantum realm.
See, that's the part I found that was really awkward. And I know we're going to talk about Bill Murray in a second, but it was almost kind of like she's sitting down with her family for dinner and then her ex shows up. And it was kind of like, well, this is awkward. And I didn't understand how everyone's okay with this.
She went to go see Krylar because if anyone knew where Scott and Cassie were, Krylar would have heard. Because I guess he's in the know. He has his ear to the ground in the quantum realm. So she went to him out of necessity to try to find Scott and Cassie so they can all get out of the quantum realm before Kang finds them.
Why didn't she look for the guy that was all knowing? The one that can read minds?
Maybe she didn't know him per se, but she knew Krylar and she knew that Krylar would know about these things. So it's one of those things where, like, if you know someone, if you know they're connected, you go to the person who's connected, even though you don't want to see them again. And it might be a little embarrassing because, I guess they had a thing. And apparently Hank had something with Jennifer Coolidge. But, that's in a timeline that we didn't get to see. But since you mentioned him, Bill Murray as Lord Krylar.
I just love him. I love Bill Murray. Anything that he's in.
I mean,
I thought he was great.
He was good in this role. I mean, it feels like a very throwaway character, even though it's basically important to know that he's connected enough. But if he knows that Janet's there, then obviously Kang knows he's there, even though he's still speaking in freaking pronouns. That's the thing. The script is so like everything's so like Voldemort level kind of. We don't speak his name. No. Eventually someone's got to say Kang. Stop saying him. He's here. Like, we get it. Stop dragging us along. We all know. We saw the trailer. We know who Kang is. I mean, Bill Murray's good in the role, and it's a fun little cameo, but I think it would have been better had we not known he was in the film. But because we all knew that Bill Murray was going to be in the movie, we just didn't know who he was going to play. Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. Your thoughts?
Oh, terrifying. But you know what? I mean, obviously he has authority. Like, he owns the scenes that he's in. Mm-hmm. He really is a force, and he's so good at what he does. Like that whole scene where, I mean, I honestly thought for sure he would have killed Cassie and not cared. Not thought twice.
Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Majors as Kang has appeared as a Kang variant a couple times. The first at the end, as mentioned, at the end of Loki season 1. Throughout Loki season 2 as Victor Timely. And then as this version of Kang, very much Kang the Conqueror. This is the closest to a proper Kang that we got in Jonathan Majors' appearances. And even still, though, I'm not a fan of his performance.
Oh?
And I say that because his delivery feels like very discount Shakespeare in the Park. Everything is long, dramatic pauses.
But that's horrifying because you don't know what he's going to do
it
next.
It feels so forced, though. Like, it's... See, Thanos was very much... He was eloquent. but he also had a menace to him. Like very calm. You know how it is, right? When your parents are so mad that they're just talking in a very monotone voice, because if they let loose of their emotions, you will feel it. That was Thanos. This felt very stage-esque and almost emphasized for emphasis' sake. I wasn't a fan of the performance. And the thing is, Kang to me is such a great character. And maybe I'm a little biased because every single animated portrayal that I have seen of Kang the Conqueror has been terrifying and menacing, but more along a Thanos level kind of delivery than as opposed to this. This is the best Kang that we got in the MCU. It was more comic book accurate. It was a threat. But then, and this is one of the biggest knocks on some of the MCU films, you take a great character, a great evil character, and you get rid of him. You kill him off. Esque. Well, yes, because the Council of Kangs at the end says that the exiled one has died, and now the rest of the Kangs are coming out. Another post-credit scene that's not going to pay out. I don't know. I wasn't a fan.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
Couple of smaller characters get here. Jentora is played by Katie O'Brien. This is the freedom fighter, like very almost like Conan the Barbarian-esque looking freedom fighter that Cassie Lang helped get out of prison. Your thoughts on her?
I loved her turnaround because at first I thought for sure like she didn't care about anybody else. She was like a warrior, right? And I thought for sure she was going to try and take them down because they were human and different. And then I loved that Cassie connected with her.
Yeah. I mean,
and saved her, actually.
Yeah, Katie O'Brien is a really, really good actor. Now, I haven't had a chance to watch Love Lies Bleeding yet, but I thought she did a fantastic job in The Mandalorian. Like, really good job in The Mandalorian.
You know what character she reminded me of? She reminded me so much of Valkyrie.
I can see that. The nice thing, too, is that they didn't kill off Jentora. So there's nothing saying that you can't have Katie O'Brien come back if, for some reason, Doomsday and Secret Wars takes us back to the quantum realm. Katie O'Brien is great, and I thought she was really good in that, despite the fact that her wardrobe looks like it came out of the Conan the Barbarian extras. And then you get William Jackson Harper, who played Quaz. This is the guy who could read minds. Straight out of The Good Place into the quantum realm. Your thoughts?
Oh, that's it. I'm like, I recognize him, but I can't figure it out. I liked him.
Cheaty.
I wanted to see more of him because I thought he really had that. I mean, his superpower is useful.
Yes.
Right? He could have, if he connected more with Janet, he could have helped get them out of there faster.
But I think that's what you needed to do, though. You needed to separate the characters who could easily solve the problem so the movie would continue, right? If you put all the characters together that can solve the problem in 10 seconds, then roll credits, the movie's done.
But the problem with this movie is that they were stuck in the quantum realm for too long.
Yeah.
It got too much.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I mean, I really love the fact that he's in this. The Good Place is so much fun. And his role as Cheaty is pitch perfect. And you got a lot of that kind of humor with it, right? They gave him some really good lines that fit with his personality. I like Quaz. I like Jentora. I liked a lot of the Freedom Fighters. I wasn't a big fan of Broccoli Head, but whatever. But you didn't really give them much to do except to be there, say, basically show that they have some kind of power or some kind of way, and then that's it. I'd be curious what these characters are like outside the quantum realm.
I liked the awkward hug with the pink
Yes.
Jelly monster.
Yeah, the pink jelly monster is fun. That drink the goo. But even then, the whole thing, like, how many holes do you have? I'm like, oh, you're going down this, like, almost catering to the lowest common denominator kind of jokes. I have holes. Speaking of lowest common denominator, MODOK, as played by Corey Stoll.
Excellent segue there.
I thought so. Your thoughts on MODOK, the mechanized organism designed only for killing?
You know what? Opened the playing field for the absolute best lines. Don't be a dick.
See,
that made the movie.
No, it didn't.
It did, because you know what? At that point, I was just like, when is this going to end? Just end it now. And then it was so close to the end that I'm like, yes, the past 2+ hours is like, everything's worthwhile now.
Okay.
Wait, what was his name? The character name? Doug?
No, Darren.
Darren. Ah, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I knew it started with a D.
Yeah.
Darren, don't be a dick.
No, Doug Forsyth was the guy from The Good Place that figured out like 96% of the actual afterlife. So you're mixing your Good Place and your Quantum Realm kind of references here. Look, can we talk about MODOK for a second here?
Oh boy.
MODOK is a complicated character. And I'm not saying that like from like a personality standpoint. He's so out there that it's almost impossible to not, play him for jokes, and you basically played your cards right out on Front Street, because there was the MODOK series on Disney Plus, and I guess on Hulu in the States, that basically made a joke of the MODOK character as done by Seth Green and his crew over Robot Chicken. Did we need to see MODOK's butt like a little tiny naked minion? No, we did not. Like, MODOK can be a good character, but even in the animated series, he's an annoying little and I think the other thing too is by having Darren be MODOK, you change the entire backstory of MODOK, because that's not MODOK. MODOK works in partnership with AIM Mechanics, and that's not MODOK. It's like, how can we include Darren? How can we like explain? Because I get at the end of Ant-Man, like Yellow Jacket shrinks down to so small he enters the quantum realm, and we never really find out what happens to Yellow Jacket. Now we know he got turned into MODOK. It's adding a character in for adding a character's sake, because when are you ever going to get a chance to do MODOK outside of a realm like the quantum realm? Like, and yet at first, when he's got the mask on, like the battle mask, it's like, okay, this isn't bad. Then the thing flips up and it's this giant freaking Corey Stoll head. And I'm like, now I know what happens on the bobblehead production line. And they put him in his little arms, his little legs, and it just looks bad. The face in MODOK looks bad.
It was pretty cheesy.
I need to pivot here, because this is a whole ton of CGI in this film, right? The entire quantum realm doesn't exist. Yeah, there were sets built for like the prison scene and whatnot, and probably Kang's main control room, throne room, whatever you want to call it. But for the most part, it's like actors in a green screen room acting to nothing. And then all of a sudden, you have these artists that have come out and created a very visually stunning quantum realm. Like, I have to give credit where credit is due. You're being told, all right, we're going to see a world that doesn't really exist and hasn't really been explored too much. Go nuts. Make the quantum realm. And for the most part, they did a damn good job. MODOK looks like crap. He does. Big Corey Stoll head on a tiny little body floating around going, I'm not a dick. Come on, really? No. That's not in a film that's supposed to introduce an Avengers level threat like Kang the Conqueror. Just no. All right. Before we go, I have to ask you. This is, by the critic score, the lowest rated MCU film. In your opinion, is this the worst MCU film?
It's bad. I didn't enjoy this one as much as I thought I was going to. And I mean, I am, as I mentioned earlier, a defender of Madam Web. Like, I enjoyed that one. I found it fun, in spite of the critic hate that's thrown at it. And this one, I found it boring. Now, I'm going to go off here because I've been waiting all record to finally say this.
All right.
Whew. As I mentioned, I like the Avengers movies. I like a lot of the offshoots of Marvel movies. I liked the Marvels. I liked I didn't hate the Eternals, okay? I am okay with the sub Marvel group. Aside from the core Avengers group, I am okay with a lot of the Marvel characters. I like Ant-Man. But this movie, being stuck in the quantum realm where really anything can happen and you don't quite know where you are, and it doesn't draw an anchor back to reality until the very end of the movie, I have a real problem with. I, as a newbie to Marvel movies, this whole like alternate timeline and quantum realm and what is it, Doctor Strange and the
Multiverse of Madness.
Like, I can only take in so much information. And when you put me in the absolute
CGI-est of CGI worlds.
Yeah, like beyond the stratosphere of like reality, and open it up to like alternate realms and possibilities and outer worlds. I can't wrap my head around where the hell we are. And as soon as I was taken from Earth, where, Ant-Man was a thing and he was loving life, and then we get sucked into this quantum realm. I just want, again, I wanted the Avengers to come in and help save the day. I wanted to come back to Earth and see what's happening, like anchor me, bring me back to reality at least midway through the movie, because watching it, you don't know what the hell is going on back on Earth. You don't know if they're actually there or if, there's something, maybe they're all kind of like, I don't know, in their minds, they're there, but they're actually sitting on a couch somewhere. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I just wanted to be anchored. I didn't want to feel like I was floating out in the ether. And this movie made me feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, there is an argument that this movie is style over substance and could very easily be made. I wonder, though, because Madam Web is part of the Sony Spider-Verse, which has brought us gems like, Morbius. Yeah, Morbius. Going into a Sony Spider-Verse film, you tend to have lower expectations. And my expectations were low for Madam Web. They got to hit those expectations, but, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, right? But the thing with an MCU film is that they set the bar so high during the Infinity Saga. And there can be an argument made for like maybe they should have just left well enough alone after Endgame. But to the same token as well, we want to know what happens with some of these characters. And there is room to grow, but I think you need to take the notes from the Infinity Saga and see what you can do in order to be able to replicate that momentum. And it feels like this new multiverse saga has been kind of hit and miss. Shang-Chi is an absolute hit. It's one of my favorite MCU films post-Endgame. Black Widow was okay. I enjoyed it for what it was. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, not a fan of. This one, I found it underperforming and underwhelming. Like, despite the fact that you've created this epic CGI landscape of the quantum realm, and I can get behind that because I'm a sci-fi geek, I get it. But you have to have, not weight, but you have to have
anchors.
Yeah.
Bring me back to reality. Like my point exactly in the Multiverse of Madness. You do keep coming back to at least a central point. Except in this movie where it was only top and tail.
Yeah. I mean, at least with Multiverse of Madness, you can also sit there and say, okay, well, this is Doctor Strange doing his best to, try to figure out like America Chavez and her ability to traverse the multiverse, yada, yada, yada kind of thing. And there's also the connection with Christine as he ends up in one different Earth, and the Scarlet Witch trying to use America Chavez to get her children from a different Earth. Like, I get the storyline behind Multiverse of Madness because it's tied to the characters. Quantumania just felt like this epic world exploration with not much story to it. Reminded me a little bit of Star Trek The Motion Picture, where it is like 2.5 hours long. I mean long. And it's like, finally we have the budget in order to make Star Trek big for the big screen. And we've got like so much time of like, for lack of a better term, and to quote a term from one of his trailers, spaceship porn. Let's get these big sweeping shots of the Enterprise and, long moments of score. But the story is horrible, and it focuses on a character that's not Kirk or Spock or McCoy. Like, meh.
Well, that's exactly my issue with this, is that it focused more on Janet and her backstory of when she was previously stuck in the quantum realm. But to those who don't know what they're talking about, you're talking about things that you're not actually talking about, right? You're talking about a previous 30 years that she was trapped in this quantum realm and talking about stories that only she knows about because she's not sharing them.
Yeah.
If you had more flashback to like when, like, the time before.
Yeah, because you had that flashback opening scene before you get to, Scott doing his book reading or whatnot. That kind of sets the tone a little bit, but
not near enough. I mean, I had already forgotten about that. Like, I'm talking like bring it back with at least, take us back, show us, I don't know, show us a scene from a memory.
I mean, here's the way I look at this film. If you're looking for an Ant-Man and the Wasp film, as you've come to know them, this is not the movie. If you're looking for a movie that introduces an Avengers level threat and sets up future tentpoles, this ain't that movie. If you're looking for a chance to advance towards an eventual Young Avengers film, this is where this movie does succeed because it establishes Cassie Lang as a superhero fairly well. So 1 out of 3 ain't bad. All right. Before we go, it's time. Who is your MVP of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
Can I just give a massive shout out? I thought it was so clever, the wordplay that they did with Ant-Man and Quantumania. And I didn't clue into it until I saw the title, right? I was like, oh, that's freaking brilliant.
This is like that moment when you realize that Disney World has ORL in it for Orlando and Disneyland has LA in it for Los Angeles.
Exactly, right?
Right?
Brilliance.
Quantumania has Ant-Man in it. So there you go. You can't have Quantumania without Ant-Man.
Right.
But yes, your MVP. Aside from the wordplay, your MVP.
I love the scene. Okay, so where there were how many thousands of Ant-Men lifting up the real Ant-Man so that he could reach to, what was he was reaching for something to try to get. So I'm going to say
he's trying to get a MacGuffin is what he's trying to get.
I'm going to say Paul Rudd. I have to go with Ant-Man himself. But because he can play off of how many different versions of himself. There was the Baskin-Robbins dude. There was like how many different Ant-Man? You're Ant-Man, I'm Ant-Man. I'm the real Ant-Man. Like that's I don't know, that always gets me when you've got the actor that's playing off of himself.
Not my
times 1,000.
Not my MVP.
No?
No. I originally actually had Michelle Pfeiffer written down as my MVP because I thought that, you really got a chance to flush out the Janet character and what Janet went through. But I'm changing my mind because the more we talked about this film, the more I realized that it's less an Ant-Man and the Wasp film and the more it's a stature film. So Catherine Newton is my MVP as Cassie Lang, and I look forward to what they do with an eventual Young Avengers film when they eventually pair her up with Haley Steinfeld and Iman Vellani and whoever else they add to the mix along the way. Carrie, thank you so much for this. And remember, we have 1 week left of Razzies month, and oh dear God, do we have something planned for you next week. But until that time, viewers, you know the drill. If there is a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned or is just so bad that there is no way in the quantum realm that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at NotThatBadcast or go to our website at NotThatBadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out our music shows. There can only be one, and Spin, Shuffle, Skip. Until next time, she's Carrie, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.